tell
What's
us
up,
a little about
guys?
yourself?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, so you're looking at it. This is CMP Appraisals, just the two of us. So, well, actually, you have Trish now.
Yeah,
Too, so.
the mom and pop shop. So mom, pop, and and we have a trainee now, Trish, which has been a lifesaver too to us,
huge.
especially during this time. So she's our appraisal trainee headed towards getting her license too. So it's been great having another teammate join the team. So it's been great.
Yeah, that is nice.
I think the first time I heard about y'all was probably through social media, and I remember seeing that it was one of your videos about kind of showing how you got started. Because I believe your family is in the appraisal business also. So how did you kind of get into the world of appraisals, and how did that all start out?
Yeah, it was a bit of an
watching them live a life of their own hours that they chose.
Yeah, it was I was military before. I was in the Army, and after that, I spent 10 years with the police department. A big chunk of that working homicide and as a sniper for the SWAT team. So Christmas Day, I think 2015, I get called into work. Family obviously wasn't happy.
2013.
2013, sorry.
Yeah.
I remember.
So when I came back from being gone for a long time at my job, her dad, who was an appraiser, said, "Have you ever thought about doing anything different?" And initially I was like, "No," But as time went on, like Britt said, we kind of saw that the business that they were able to build and how it was so good for their family, and they were always home for holidays and stuff like that. So that's how it started. Yeah, that's how it started.
So Brittany, did you tell your dad to like, hey, I need you to get Chris out of the military? We're gonna get him to do this.
Chris is leaving on a couple of bumps and bruises along the way, like his back going out,
it's a
not
long
able
story,
to, many nights. I think it came down to, Chris, would you like to be part of our family?
Join us, please.
Yeah.
So no, it was definitely, it was a family decision. We say, even in our video, the promo video, if you look really close, we tell our friends, we talk about, Chris says in it, I was ready for a change. And we say that's when CMP Appraisals was born. And that's really when it was born. We were like, you know what, like we need a change. And that's really, that video was just so heartfelt to us because it really was us telling our story. Like we needed, as we are a family business, our family was struggling. And we were ready for a change, and that's when we went into the appraisal business. It wasn't like, well, I don't know. When you were a little boy, were you like, "Dear God, please make me an appraiser"?
When they asked me, what
you dream about when you're young.
I wasn't an appraiser. I love my job now, though. I do. I really do.
I mean, SWAT sniper, appraiser. I mean, it's almost the kind of the same thing.
Very similar. There actually are an odd amount of similarities. One, I still go in a lot of people's houses, although I don't need a search warrant anymore. And two, I spend most of my day by myself in my car driving around.
They're not running from you.
Yeah. Generally, no one's trying to hurt me. Most of the time, people are happy to see me now.
And the people are alive,
so
he's happy.
Yeah.
So and I could have run the dispatch. So it's funny because sometimes we'll get a rush order in, and he'll be out in the field somewhere, and it'll be in the same zip code. So I'll call him up and say, "All right, this is the order." And because he's so used to, what was your call sign? 11 November.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to release this information?
I don't really care. I'm sure.
Forget it.
I can call him out in the field. I was like, "Okay, we're rerouting. You're going to, XYZ, property," and he's like, just very used to.
Good at finding addresses.
And it's good, and it's the same. And it's funny for anybody in real estate. So much of a lot of what police. Anytime you're working with people, there's always this aspect of the unexpected, the abrupt, the change your plans, go with the flow, different personalities that you just have to adjust with. I was a teacher before, so it's still very much like this same aspect of relationships. You have a schedule that you think you have, and then there's reality. And you just, you fill in the gaps, you fill in the pieces, and that's your profession.
Yeah. Because technically, you're both on both of those career paths. We're all still helping people, so it's still kind of the same kind of concept.
Yeah,
it has for sure. I think that's the part that I think that's probably, people say, how do you work with your spouse, and actually, oddly enough, we work really well together. In marriage as husband and wife, we still sometimes, just in that, but working, we do.
Well, I think her friend said it best. I think like when you're the spouses that work together, when you're working, you're better staying in your lanes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like she lets me I stay in the appraiser lane. She stays in the everything that she does lane.
Yes.
In marriage, those lanes are blurry.
Yeah. I'm like, laundry is both of us, honey. Like we both are in the laundry lane, remember?
Yeah.
So now, are you both appraisers?
No, just me. Just me.
Just two. So one appraiser and the other one kind of does the back.
Everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everything else. Scheduling, phone calls.
She's the real MVP.
Yes.
No. I'll tell you, it's definitely a joint effort for sure. There's no question about it.
You're not going to catch her out in the rain measuring a house. Like,
I will send him out in the rain. If we have a certain amount of cases we have to get in that week, he's going out in the rain.
That's right.
So I guess like we deal with appraisers all the time, but we don't actually really know like what is the life as an appraiser like day to day. Like what does your day consist of?
Okay, so generally, like we'll take today for example. Usually, like kind of the morning for us is like our kind of office time. Usually until about 11 or so, and then I head to the field. And once I'm out in the field, it's just going to each of my appointments, measuring the houses, making sure I got good data, interacting well with the homeowner, right? Because a lot of times, just like with a police officer, I may be the first appraiser they've ever dealt with, and they're nervous about the buying process. So, still navigating that, still that same kind of customer service. And then when we get back, it's funny because every time I finish my inspection, it takes maybe 30 to 45 minutes, and people say, well, what's the value of my house? I'm like, well, I've got like 4 hours of desk work at my desk to figure out what that's going to be. So it's just really those two stark contrasts. It's out in the field, crawling through rose bushes in the rain and measuring houses and taking pictures, and then coming back to the office and in my NORAD looking desk over there, running all the data and putting together a good value package for the client.
So what would be like for all that stuff? What would be your favorite part of being an appraiser? Like, what was your favorite part?
It kind of goes back to what we were talking about with before, like where there was a lot of carryovers between my last profession and now. What I like, honestly, about my job now, and I don't mean it to sound cliche or tacky, but we really do get to help people who are in tough situations. Like we really, really do get to help people. And that's seriously my favorite part. We deal with not only purchases, but we deal with pre-listings. We deal with estate cases, in a case of like a death of a family member, divorces. So yeah, being able to help people and like kind of meet people where they are and walk them through the process and take that one little element of anxiety out of it for them, we find a lot of pleasure in that. Yeah.
And I see that he likes the autonomy of it. I know that, when you're working for yourself, you're making your own schedule.
Yeah.
As long as I keep her happy, man, I'm good.
Yeah. So what would be the worst part of the job?
The slog, I would say, over this last year. Just the volume has been which is a blessing. Which has been a blessing, but also just a lot. So I guess the part I like the least is sitting at my desk, actually like running the numbers and typing everything up. It's probably 80% of my job. So,
and that's probably the complaint, or not the complaint, but I think probably most appraisers would say,
sure, yeah,
we're part of a mastermind group of some really great appraisers nationally, and we meet once a week, and it's good. It's really nice to be able to talk to, aside from just the local appraisers that we're friends with, obviously, it's also nice to talk with these guys nationally and just compare different strategies that we're all using, different programs we're using, different issues that we're facing. And just, it's nice. I mean, even I'm sure you guys are probably part of the same, clubs and masterminds. The good old Hampton Roads Mastermind on Facebook.
So how does appraising work? I've always wanted to ask y'all this. So do you go out and solicit yourself to mortgage companies? Because I know when you call them, like for real estate agents, the mortgage companies assign our appraisers. So
Sure.
is that who you sign on under? How does that work?
Yeah. So,
That's a good question.
It's a good question. Yeah, it's a great question.
Each one works a little bit differently.
Yeah, and so like the lending work is probably, I'm going to guess 50 to 60% of our business. The other is all private that we get from.
I didn't realize it would be that. I thought the lending would be probably the highest. That's interesting.
Well, for a lot of
Changes.
yeah, well, it changes,
changes,
and
yeah.
for different appraisal offices, it's different. Like for some appraisal offices, they may be 100% VA lending. We just really like interacting with our agents, so as a result, we end up doing a lot of pre-listing work as well. We also get a lot of work off of like our Google, like just for estates or divorces. But for the lending work, yeah, we kind of introduce ourselves to the mortgage companies, get put on their roster. And I'm sure, as you guys know, post 2008, you get put on like kind of a rotation, a blind rotation. So yeah, it's just a matter of meeting with the mortgage companies.
And they do, different mortgage companies have different vetting processes. So you go through an application that you fill out, you send in your resume. They look for different aspects. I know that, the local banks that you guys know, like some of the bigger names, do we go into listing the names?
Well,
Are we allowed to?
yeah.
We have to be careful because, we can't show any favoritism towards, anyone that we're working with. That's our USPAP guidelines, and USPAP stands for
the Uniform Standard of Professional Appraisal Practice. If you ever see it, it's riveting to read. But basically, if you ever see an appraiser acting squirrely or following rules, it's all from USPAP. So.
And we are, yes. And, you're going to find with the local banks, they are a little more stringent with their vetting, just because, they are going to try to find an appraiser that lives here, an appraiser that has a certain amount of years of experience, a certain amount of, qualifications that they can really see, who is appraising the property and they have a relationship with. We're a relationship-based business. Not all appraisal offices are. Some of the larger company, like a larger company, like an appraisal management company. Are you guys familiar with that term?
Not really, honestly.
Okay, so like an AMC, what they will do, they kind of orchestrate things like a little bit differently. So what they do is if they have a case that needs an appraisal, they'll send out like a blast email to any appraiser that they have an email address for in the area, and people can submit a bid. So they can submit a bid, basically how much they would charge and how fast they can turn it over. And then what the AMC does then is that they receive all these bids, and then they will, some of them either they choose or they submit to the lender. Each one is different, and the lender can then choose. And some of them even have rankings of the appraisers, like, hey, this guy has 4 stars with his quality, 3 stars with his time. And so they can actually choose the quality and like attendance record, I guess you might say, of the appraiser. Whereas others would say, hey, who does it cheapest and fast.
Yeah.
So we don't bid anymore. Thankfully, it's not something that we.
And why she reminded me of something that I did a roundtable yesterday, and this kind of came up too, like how we get our orders and stuff. But the question sounded like this: why, when we order an appraisal, 30 days before closing, and we don't get it back until like a week before? Like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
Well, it's actually kind of what she's talking about. That's why it happens. So. It's some banks. I'm trying to think of, let's just say Bank A. I'm trying to think of one that does this way, but they'll actually order internally. Okay, so they have their own appraisal desk that will order the appraisal directly to us because we're on their roster. Others, like she said, they use the AMCs, which is like a third-party company, because post 2008 there has to be that separation between the loan officer and the appraiser. So a lot of times when you guys order the appraisal, it's got to go from you guys to the LO, from the LO to the third party. And then whatever day the closing date is based on depends on when they'll send it out. Because all the time we'll call agents to schedule an appointment, and they'll say, we ordered this 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we just got the email this morning, and they put a rush on it.
Yeah.
So
that was me.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
No, that was all the time. It was all the time.
So do you have to get certified in like VA appraisals, FHA, and conventional? Are those all 3 different qualifications? Certifications of some type?
So kind of. So once you're licensed, there are 2 different levels of licensure in Virginia, at least, and in most states. there's residential, commercial, obviously, and in residential, there's licensed and certified. Certified being a slightly higher level. I am certified. I'm sorry, where was I going with that?
So there's the FHA.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
conventional.
So once you're certified, you're certified obviously to handle conventional loans. For FHA, there is like a roster that you have to get on, the same as VA, and you have to go through kind of a training course to understand the different FHA inspection guidelines, which we field questions on every day because it's kind of convoluted and complicated.
We have a checklist.
You have a checklist
coming here to our website.
And for VA, VA likes to maintain an older, I don't mean just or a senior panel, and it's usually just based on like just time on, like how long you've been an appraiser, and then you get on their roster or their waiting list, and once a spot opens up, you get on with the VA. So, like in our area in Hampton Roads, I think there's 85 VA appraisers.
It's a very coveted position for appraisers. It's it's basically job security when you're an appraiser, because you can say how many cases you'd like a week, and then those are guaranteed to you.
Oh wow.
That is pretty nice.
Yeah.
I guess.
And once you're on, you're not coming off until you're ready to sail on to the next life.
I guess the main question, like went back in 2020 when everything kind of got really crazy. Do y'all know what the house is under contract for when you go to do appraisal?
Sure. Yeah. Before we go out to do the appraisal, we'll have the contract, any sort of contingencies. We have all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
So are you taking in any of these considerations of the $15,000 over or $50,000 over? I've seen in some cases. Do you take that into consideration?
Yeah. We have to. And, there's kind of two different ways that appraisers can look at the way the market is right now, because we've seen exponential growth. I mean, it's just the prices just continue to go up. One train of thought is, well, the appraiser should act as like a gatekeeper of the market and say, well, no, this is going to crash, and et cetera, et cetera. That's one mindset. And the other, which I tend to follow, is, well, I just follow the market. If I'm interpreting historical data, so if the historical data shows me that a house is worth what it's worth, and that's the value. So 2020 was incredibly challenging, especially when the appreciation rates first started to really rocket up, because we were seeing 3, 4, 5, 6% price increases in certain markets and certain price ranges, but the historical data we had didn't reflect that. The kind of good news is these elevated prices have gone on for so long now that the historical data now is showing these elevated prices. If I go through the rest of my career without another 2020, I'd be pretty good.
I guess because it was kind of crazy, because it was like, let's say the house was under contract for $400, and then it was selling for like $450, but it was like $20,000 guaranteed.
Sure.
Do you take into account the fact that, like, okay, well, they're $20,000 guaranteed. If I don't give $450, technically this whole buyer's got to bring in all this to pocket and all that stuff, and then let's say it's appraises for like $430, they come the rest out of the pocket, and then the next appraisal, like once you have to use that $450 as a comp. So
yeah, exactly. And that's why it has been so challenging this year. And two, because you have to understand the purpose of a lending appraisal. It's basically saying to the loan officer, to the lender, well, if this person goes, they can't make their payments, you should be able to recoup this investment and get it back. So if we see that there's an appraisal guarantee for, say, $20,000 or $30,000 under the appraised value, you have to kind of compute a lot of things. Like, one, I want to protect my client, which is the bank, right? And say, okay, this is what I think you should be able to recoup. But the other side, these are also human beings that you're dealing with, that there are agents who have worked their butts off on this, LOs who have worked their butts off, and you have buyers and sellers with plans and dreams and hopes, and they want to, so you have to navigate all these things, and also do your job as an appraiser, which is to protect the bank. But, like you said, if I see that the house is listed for $400 and it went under contract for $450 with a $30,000 appraisal guarantee, that buyer, and they kind of already know what's up. They know it's not likely that we're going to get to that $450, and they already kind of know that. So we do take it into consideration. We never try to hit a number But we obviously try to give our best value. But like I said, with 2020 and then now into 2021, it's just been a big head scratcher. And hopefully it starts to level out soon.
Because that was good.
Oh, sorry. Is there a difference between a appraisal? Because I've heard always through the grapevine that if you get a refi, it's a different appraisal than if you doing a resale.
So technically, no. Technically, there's no difference. The inspection is still exactly the same. The evaluation process is still exactly the same. The only difference might be sometimes is because remember, we're for a loan officer, for a lending institution, we're trying to basically, for the lack of a better term, guarantee that investment. So for a refi and the person, they just want to get a better rate. They're not looking to take out any money. They just really want a better rate. Even though the valuation process is exactly the same, we may tend to be a little more conservative because again, we're kind of verifying that for the bank. But the overall picture is no. The inspection process, the evaluation process is all exactly the same. The only time it changes is if they're FHA or VA, and in that case, the valuation process is exactly the same, but the inspection process is a little different. We're looking for things like missing handrails, chip paint. I could go on, and we have gone on and on about these things.
I feel like the last 2 years, it was like when I was going to list a house, it would be like, what if it doesn't appraise? It was like almost like y'all were like the villain. It was like,
I know.
What if it doesn't appraise? What happens then?
I know.
And so if it doesn't, let's say if it doesn't appraise, and let's say like the buyers and the sellers have an issue with it, what happens? What happens then?
So if it's a conventional or FHA, you can just ask. You can have the loan officer communicate through the portal or through the appraisal port, just a reconsideration of value. And the best way to do that, if you look through the report and you see a comp or something that the appraiser just completely missed, and we're humans, I mean that happens, or a property that maybe we saw as a comp but we discarded because we thought it wasn't applicable, but you guys think that it is, and explain to us why. Just try to communicate with the appraiser, like either give them the new comp or look at their grid, for example, and see where they made the adjustments, and then maybe just not question that, but kind of bring that to their attention. For example, if they only made an adjustment for $10,000 for an in-ground pool, but in your CMAs and everyone that you're talking to, and even other appraisers, they're saying no, pools are $20,000, $30,000, right? So that's one way to kind of handle it.
And the key there is to do it through the LO's portal for sure.
Yeah.
Because if you're calling into the office, you're probably not. We can't really do, because technically the
bank is
our client, so everything has to come through the bank. Because we can't do anything unless our client is asking us to.
Yeah. And that's important to know too, because even some appraisers are, just like bus drivers or professors or restaurant owners. Some are nice, some aren't, right?
Yeah.
So
I've met both.
Yeah. So what can we do? What can we do as agents? Do you want us to show that up there with a whole bunch of stuff and give you some input?
I personally do, and it's funny because we get to ask these questions a lot. But some appraisers just kind of live in a bubble. It's just the nature of their profession. We don't really have to meet anybody if we don't want to. Ever, we don't have to even answer anybody's questions if we don't want to. We don't do that. So, I like when agents meet me with comps and stuff because one, you sell the property to me, which I like. And I'm able to see your guys' train of thought, where this valuation came from. So I really do like it, but I've heard of appraisers just being like, nah, no thanks. I have the MLS. So my recommendation would be, if you can't meet them there for the appraisal, just maybe get their email address at least and just send them the data that you have.
And I
Go ahead.
Oh no, I would say, not as an appraiser, as the appraiser's wife, I see people that prepare these gorgeous packages, and I just know that because we're basically a paperless office. So I would say, don't waste your ink, don't waste your paper.
That's a good point.
Anything you can just send mobilely, because we're working with a trainee, and so many appraisal offices are, working in this way where they don't have a brick and mortar office per se, and you are exchanging information just through a database. It's not necessary. So whatever you can just send digitally, that's going to be the most efficient way. So
that's a really great point.
It is beautiful, because I see some of these packages and I appreciate it because I know what that person has done. And I know that you have an appreciation for it also. It's just that, when you're working through these cases, you have to understand that we have a pipeline of cases, that is just, it's in constant motion, and there's just multiple cases. So I would just say that would be just my tip.
So file cabinets are on their way out for sure.
Oh yeah.
So in other words, that nice packet I've been sending people, they just look at it and it's like, oh, this is nice, and they throw it in trash.
It makes us feel good though to walk in there.
And there is value in it for sure.
There is when you're. I mean,
well, I guess a happy medium would be. I think across the spectrum of appraisers, I think the most efficient way would be to do it digitally, because even if that appraiser is not the type of appraiser that wants to meet people at appointments, and a lot of times it's not because they're being like, quite frankly, like just mean or bad. They may have 6 or 7 inspections that day, and they just got to go in, out, in, out, in, out.
Right.
So sometimes that's why. But if you can email it to them, then they have it.
Yeah.
Even us personally, when we had our house appraised, and of course we knew the appraiser that came, and we wanted to kind of talk with them. He's like, and we get it, because he's just gotta.
Yeah.
So you would say this be almost very specific on like show like why you believe what you believe. Don't be like, hey, you're wrong. This house is worth this. So just more or less kind of give specifics.
Yeah, of course. And kind of going back to sending us the data too, like if you send us a list of the improvements of the house and your comps and stuff, now the appraiser is kind of, not bound to it, but we at least have to answer to that. Like if you tell me that the kitchen's been renovated and I, in my report, don't indicate that it has been, well, I need to answer to that because you told me it was renovated and then there are the pictures. So,
and we do have a PDF too that we have I've been emailing it out right now to our borrowers, but and if you're scheduling pre-listing or anything with us, it's a checklist that kind of goes through the bigger ROI items that we're looking for. So it just helps you prepare that list. You all know that list, but maybe your client or a borrower that we're scheduling with doesn't. So they know some of these bigger ticket items so that you can help prepare this information for us when we're coming in. So you feel more prepared, that you're better able to advocate for your property. So you just feel more comfortable about the process from the start.
Did you ever get to a point where they gave you like, oh, this kitchen has been remodeled, and you look at it like, are you sure?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Sure it's been remodeled? I don't know.
Must be on your end too.
Well, we see it mostly dealing with the comps because, we're looking at the comps online through Rain and it says fully renovated. I'm looking, and these are, of course, like staged photos, and there's a professional photographer.
Oh, yeah.
You really look. And it's like, wait, did you guys buy brand new white appliances, or are those white appliances from 1997 like ours are? Yeah. So it gets complicated sometimes.
Yes.
But
We just
when you do flipped houses, are you taking what that value is going to be if they put X amount of money, or do you just use
that's a really good
dilapidated house compared to dilapidated house?
That's an awesome question. Yeah, and actually we do both. So when we we do have some clients that are hard money clients and other investment clients, and a lot of times what I'll do for them is I'll give them 6 comps basically, and 3 of them are kind of the property as is, and then the other 3 are as renovated. And I don't really get into how much they're going to have to spend to do it. That's not my wheelhouse. That's for their contractors and for them to work out the math. But yeah, we can do that. We can do take a house that's completely dilapidated, say it's worth 110 now, but houses in that market that have been renovated are going for 315. Now what it takes for them to renovate it and the cost, that's on them. Yeah, that's not really my wheelhouse. So
I have a question. So from 2020 and then kind of on, it seems like everyone wants to be a flipper. Everyone wants to renovate and upgrade their house. So what would be the best, most efficient way to renovate your house? What offers the most value for a house? So I always get this question, I'm going to do all these crazy things. And I was like, I don't think that adds value really, but I'm sure coming from y'all would know oh, this adds value, this doesn't.
Sure. That's an awesome question, man. And you can spend money anywhere in a house, right? And as you guys know. But if you look statistically across the country, there are certain items that always have the best return on value. And no surprises, it's going to be the kitchens and the bathrooms, period. What you shouldn't put in is a pool, because that traditionally has a horrible return on value. Yeah. So those items are going to be the big ones. It's going to be the kitchen. It's going to be the bathroom, the flooring, the stuff that we already know about. Other things can get tricky. Like I've got her cousin, who's also my best friend, who lives in Maryland. He just put in this. He's an architect. He works from home. He just put in this huge detached office in his backyard, and I don't know what he's spending on it. And it's fantastic. But he was asking me like, "Well, how much do you think that's going to add to the value of my house?" And I'm like, probably nothing, right? Because for us, if we were buyers, we work from home or entrepreneurs, probably you guys, like that has value. Like you have an office. But for the average market participant, they're like, what is that, a big plate? Like, what am I going to do with that space? So the $60,000 or whatever that you're spending to put that in, you're just not going to see that back.
I can imagine that's a hard conversation. It's like, oh, I'm doing all this. How much does that add value?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, it's just like adding decks or pools. I tell people, add it, but add it for your own enjoyment, and that has value too, right?
Yeah.
You live there, but for an investment property, don't put a pool there.
Well, it's the same thing. Didn't you have this with a what was it? Gosh, I'm blanking on it, but it wasn't a pergola, but whatever, and he had like souped it up, like.
Oh yeah.
She's talking about tricked out backyards.
Yeah, like really elaborate hardscaping. Yeah,
like $50,000 worth, and we can. Well, you're going to describe it better than me. Where that would go into the grid.
Yeah, it's just it's there's really not.
So going to customizing it.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
trying to understand your question, but basically, like, there's just not a good place for us to. If you had a house that had a lot of really nice hardscaping outside and like stonework and all this other stuff, that's an element that's really hard for us to detract value from in the market, because I can't just say, people ask me all the time, what's a garage bay worth? I'm like, well, it's on a bell curve. I don't know without actually looking, but I can give them a general range just because I'm doing so many appraisals. But for stuff like hardscaping or like a big, something just really elaborate outside in the yard, or let's even say all copper plumbing, something like that. Mm-hmm. It's going to be really hard for me to pull that from the market because it's just not like a big ticket item. Does that make sense? Like having MLS, I'd have to literally read every MLS printout to look for copper plumbing, which is not going to happen.
So do you have like a standard list, like what it says like for value, or do you just kind of go off based on like experience and opinion?
Dude, I wish there was a list.
Pull it out, look at it.
No. So what we do, every value that we come up with is based on what we call compared sales analysis. So I'll kind of answer your question in two ways. So every value that we get from pulling comps. We put them on our grid, which you guys have all seen. We neutralize the different line items, and then the ones that are left over, we can then detract value from. So say everything else is equalized, square footage is accounted for. The subject has no pool, a comp has a pool. It's a $20,000 difference. Well, there's a pool, $20,000. So that's how we get those. Over the course of doing 500 or 600 of those every year, we come up with value ranges that we see that are just typical. Like typically for a garage bay, we're going to see $5,000 to $10,000 per bay. Now that varies depending on the market, but and that's why I said it's kind of bell curve. But so is there like a list to go by? Not really, but I am able to give agents like a range that they can use when they're doing their CMAs or they're trying to do their comps. Like for example, I usually tell them try to look between $20 and $50 per square foot for the adjustment for GLA, like stuff like that. I can give them kind of a range, but unfortunately, there's no master list, man. I wish it was. It made my job so much easier.
I guess I know y'all are super busy, but I have one question. So y'all have like, do y'all have a crazy story like from like appraisers, like the craziest thing that you've happened to you as an appraiser? Do you have any kind of crazy stories or anything?
Well, there was one day where two borrowers both had appraisers coming. Their mailboxes were somehow reversed, and they knew that. The mailman knew that.
No, the other person didn't have an appraiser coming. So yeah, it was a complicated address, and it was a pre-listing. It was an estate case or a divorce, something like that. And just the way the driveways were arranged and everything was different. So I walked up to the house thinking it was the correct house, and when I knocked on the door, I was met with a shotgun. So
yes,
that's
like a legit shotgun. So
that is one. Yes. Yes, and we called the agent right away. And I was like, "Hey, what is going on?" He said he knocked on the door. The guy's got a shotgun to his
She's like,
face.
"That's not my client."
It's like, you got the wrong house. But there was a time too where the two people next door neighbors were both expecting appraisers, and they both appraisers flip flopped houses, and so that when they both got back to their home, both of them got back, they both realized they had both appraised the wrong house, and the neighbors didn't know because they both like, oh, the appraiser's here.
Yeah.
And somehow they both had, and you can't flip flop appraisals because you can't put your signature on something.
It was odd that like they were both doing the refi boom. So they're both doing refis at the same time. So when I knocked on the wrong door, the guy was expecting an appraiser too. So he was like, come on in. So that happened. That was embarrassing.
So the guy that had the shotgun, did you like go into action? Did Army kick in? Like
no, that was the old way. I just said, okay, I guess you're not interested in an appraisal.
Yeah.
So
there was a case too that came in, and the agent told us, he's like, yeah, the guy on the property, the tenant, he's really hostile to the appraiser coming. So like if he's aggressive towards you, like he said he might like, I don't know if he's going to brandish a firearm. I was like, whoa, we're not in this profession anymore. Yeah. We called the bank. We're like, reassign.
I don't deal with people with firearms anymore.
I bet you that house appraised though.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be scared not to have that house appraised.
I think that they came back and said we could do it as a desktop.
This is what happened.
Yeah, that's right. Drive by.
I'll drive by it for sure.
Get a drone. Well, just to wrap things up, so your advice is for people to put money into their kitchens and bathrooms.
Sure. Yeah.
That's probably the best thing that they can do for their houses. And one just question that kind of comes up with me is detached garages. A lot of people think that will add some money. But doesn't it have to have a driveway to it? Because a lot of times you can't get to the detached garage unless you go to the grass.
That's
an
awesome question. And it happens all the time. And you are absolutely right. So all things equal, like a detached garage versus an attached garage, like I mean a legitimate detached garage with a driveway up to it that you can put a car in or something, same value as an attached garage, exactly the same value. But a lot of times, as you mentioned, there'll be a detached garage, usually like a full all metal or something with the door, but it's in the backyard. You have to drive across grass and there's like a fence. So it doesn't really function as a garage. So, and it's not a garage because it doesn't function as a garage. I just call it a workshop.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So
about the same value.
So if people were trying to get find an appraiser like in Hampton Roads or anything, like what's the best way for them to reach out and find y'all?
Either Facebook or Instagram.
Actually, the best way right now is probably to call or text. We were keeping up with all the different platforms, but since everything got really busy, we're trying to figure out a way to just funnel everything into one place. But probably yes, any of those ways. But probably the most direct way is text or call. But for sure, yes.
Say the name of your company again and your numbers.
Yeah, so CMP Appraisals, and on Facebook is Chris and Britt.
Yeah, Chris and Britt, and then we also have the Facebook page is CMP Appraisals. I think it says Virginia Beach, and then Instagram is CMP Appraisals too. So
and it has their contact information on there.
Yeah.
Yes,
and we also have we have a Facebook group called Appraisal Optics.
Yes.
Where when I get questions like these awesome questions, I'll actually just shoot a video and post it into Appraisal Optics. It's by invite only. But yeah, it's just a ton of videos in there already. So
it's not by invite only. It's private.
It's private,
which means that you have to basically be living in the Hampton Roads area to join it, and you need to be in the industry. So it just helps keep. There's a lot of crazy people.
It cuts back. It cuts down on the feedback.
Yeah.
That's not good. I'm going to send John.
So I'm not invited.
Of course.
You are. You're in the group. No, definitely. That's probably, I would say, the best platform to get a hold of us, especially if you're looking for any questions on appraisals or, because we do answer. Of course, if you have a question about something, you can guarantee that somebody else has had the same question. And so we do post videos on there, weekly, and we've been trying to go live. It was supposed to be every week, and everything got so every busy, Friday, but we're trying to get that actually like reinstated in. But we, of course, square footage.
We cover everything. Like what is a bedroom in Virginia? Like what do you actually have to have a bedroom?
We talked about pools last year. Yeah. We actually, this is exciting. We have somebody from the VA panel coming on to talk about the Tidewater Initiative. He's going to be coming on in the next couple of months, and he's on the VA. He's actually a VA recruiter, and so he's going to come on and just kind of talk everybody through the whole process. So
that's going to be a good one.
Definitely appraisal optics. I think it's 757 in the crosshairs. We're going back to the sniper days. So
okay.
Well,
appraisal optics. I like that.
Well, I'm glad y'all came on here. I actually learned that it's not, when I'm getting really mad that the appraisal was taking really long, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Not always. Never.
That's something.
If it's taking a long time, you can guarantee that it's probably a difficult case.
Yeah.
And one of the worst things you can do is to just keep calling and calling.
You don't want 50 calls a day.
Yes. It's one of the worst things you can do. So you can go appraiser out there eating bonbons with his feet up, and
So then that one goes right on the bottom of the list.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because sometimes they're calling. They're like, "Where's the appraisal?" And I'm like, "I can give it to you now, but it's about $75,000 less than where you want it."
Yeah.
Or you can give me some time. I can make some phone calls and see what I can do.
Yeah,
you gotta weigh it out.
Yes.
We're all on the same team.
And so when you hear people say, "Oh, the LOs, they just hide behind the LOs," like, no, the LO is just trying to help us get everybody where they need to be, because this is just the way things are moving right now. So
the LOs
except for the shotgun house. The shotgun house has
never go back to his house. I'm never breaking that house again.
Well, I appreciate y'all coming on here. I learned a whole lot, and it was really nice talking.
No, it was nice meeting you. For sure.